morning to all, and welcome to the pre-bid meeting of the RFP for Program Management for Infrastructure Services. My name is William Rios Maldonado. I'm the Director of the CDBG-DR Procurement Division in the Puerto Rico Department of Housing, very known as PRDOH. All procurement processes shall be conducted in accordance to the terms established in the procurement manual and the contractual requirements to guarantee full and open competition or fair treatment of all persons or entities involved in each procurement process. The procurement manual is available for being downloaded at the CDBG-DR program website. You may reach that or download the document through the www.cdbg/dr.pr.gov under the tab of reference materials, and it is incorporated by reference and made an integral part of this RFP. Proposers shall submit all questions in writing on or before June 19th, 2020 at 4 p.m. to the electronic mailing address for the CDBG-DR program, which is already included in the instructions. Responses to all proposers' questions will be answered by addenda and will be posted in the CDBG-DR website. All procurement documents pertaining to the procurement process, including addenda issued by the PRDOH, are and will be available for download at the website that I already mentioned. All prospective proposers must monitor the website to retrieve addenda, if any, issued for this procurement process. Now, I would like Deputy Director Laura Pagan to talk and make an introduction regarding the scope of services of this procedure. Laura.
Thank you, William. This request for proposal seeks to select program management firms that will assist in the implementation of the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program, infrastructure programs, community resilience, centers program, city revitalization program, and critical infrastructure resilience program. All proposers are encouraged to review attachment number 1, the scope of services of the RFP, in order to understand the extent of the services to be furnished by the selected firm. It is important to mention that program management services will be contracted for those programs and phases within them as they are officially launched and funded. It is expected that the initial program management services to be contracted will be those related to round 1 funding allocation for the city revitalization program. Other phases and infrastructure programs will be amended to be awarded contract as they become available. The term of the contract shall be 3 years with optional extensions of up to additional years. Now, I will ask Shirley Viviel, Deputy Director for the Infrastructure Grant Management, to provide us with a briefly explanation of the infrastructure program's general description, summarize the services related to this RFP, and how the proposers will provide costs for the services in Exhibit O of the RFP.
Thanks, Laura, and good morning, everyone. I'm trying to share the screen for the presentation. So, as you know, as we are explaining, Laura explained, we are doing this pre-bid conference for the program management service for some of the infrastructure programs. The programs considered for this RFP are 3 of the infrastructure portfolio, including community resilience centers program, city revitalization, and critical infrastructure resilience. Starting with community resilience centers, this program will have only one round of funding. The CRC will be launched with a NOFA, notice of funding availability, of 75 million, where eligible entities will be municipal governments, as well as non-for-profit organizations. We make some assumptions to determine how many eligible recipients and projects we might have under each program. Under the CRC, we are expecting around 100 eligible recipients, and level considered as or project considered as level 1 are projects that had a cost less than 1 million. A maximum number of projects, this is also an assumption, will be expected to be 150 projects. As I mentioned, the city revitalization program is the only one who has launched currently under the infrastructure portfolio. The first round, already the municipios received a notification with a funding distribution. This first round has an allocation of 600 millions distributed among those municipalities. We are expecting a second round of distribution for the municipalities that will be participating on the municipal MRP program, or municipal planning program. And a third round, which is gonna, Vivienda is planning to have a competitive process with a publication of a NOFA of 178 million for eligible entities, including municipal governments and non-for-profit. The total allocation for the city revitalization program is 1.2 billion, around 1.2 billion. One of the assumptions we made, eligible recipient, we have at least one each municipality, so that gives us 78 eligible recipients. Projects will be also sourced as a threshold. We are considering to have 3 levels of projects within this scenario of city revitalization, projects between 1 million and 2 million in cost. Level 3 projects will be projects with cost between 2 and 3 millions. And level 4 projects are projects that have cost between 3 millions and 10 millions. Just to give you an overview, the municipalities that receive the funding notification are between 6 millions and 20 millions for this first round. Out of this analysis, we also made some assumptions of possible number of projects of level 2, level 3, and level 4. We expected to have around 159 level 2 projects, 166 level 3 type of projects, and 36 level 4 projects. The other program considered under these services will be to assist in the critical infrastructure resilience program. This program, we only have one round of funding. The CIR, critical infrastructure resilience, will be launched with a distribution of 400 millions, where eligible entities will be either Puerto Rican government and or FEMA-defined critical infrastructure assets. Eligible recipients under this program, we are considering around 40 recipients, and the type of projects under this program will be more likely to be level 5 projects, which are projects that will have a cost higher than 10 millions. I'm gonna now request Salim to provide you more in detail the tasks, services that we will consider for these RFP and services.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Salim Laham. Basically, the assumptions that Engineer Birriel just showed are assuming that all program managers or proposers are going to be dealing with the whole process of managing these sub-recipients and their projects. The whole process is divided into three big tasks. The first task is related to services dealing with sub-recipients and the process of having them participating in the program. And that step will basically end up with a sub-recipient agreement signed off by the Department of Housing and the sub-recipient. It is important in this task one that right now we are in the process of starting with the coordination and sign off of these sub-recipient agreements. So that means that by the time that this process is the process of the RFP and contract is completed, there will be already sub-recipients signed off, and but there will still probably some of them that will require some support in this process. So that's important to take into consideration. But in terms of the RFP, for comparison purposes, it is assumed that everybody has to go through the process of registration and getting into a sub-recipient agreement. Second task is basically all the activities required to for the sub-recipients to submit their projects. The project needs to be evaluated. They need to be checked or validated for eligibility. So it is important that all proposers understand program requirements in terms of requirement from HUD, requirement from Department of Housing. So it's important that everybody studies the action plan. Everybody needs to study the program guidelines specifically for city revitalization program, because it's the program that has been already launched, and the guidelines are already published. So everybody needs to study those because all the requirements that are established there are going to be checked or validated in this process. So after all sub-recipients have submitted their projects, and hopefully all of them are validated as eligible, then they need to get into the development phase, or let's say design phase. So that will require probably studies and not necessarily this all the sub-recipients, in this case, in this first phase of development, that are municipalities, they not necessarily have the technical staff to develop this. So it is expected and it is allowed for them to perform procurement processes to acquire these services. So proposers are required in this phase to support the preparation of sub-recipients in their procurement processes and acquiring these services. So once the projects are selected and they have, the technical staff to develop them, then all the environmental review and all the design work to get into construction documents are going to be developed. So in this part, again, this is responsibility of the sub-recipients, but the proponents or the program manager will be responsible to manage or to support the sub-recipient in this process of development, all the documentation, and all the documentation needs to be in compliance with all requirements. Again, it is really important that everybody understand the requirements for the procurement process, specifically for CDBG-DR requirements, environmental review requirements, etc. So this task 2 ends up with the basically with the bidding of the construction of the project or the projects, right? So every subrecipient is gonna have multiple projects. So the goal in this task is to have ready a project to be awarded, and since there's gonna be like a proposal for construction with specific numbers, then at that point the subrecipient agreement, which at the beginning we don't have enough information to have the cost or the specific budget for construction for each specific project, then at this point they need to amend the subrecipient with the specific information for construction for the funding. Another important detail is that the original SRA will have an authorization for the development phase of design documents and studies, but they are not going to be authorized at this initial point for the full allocation that they have already assigned, because we need to be sure that they are complying through the process of development of their project. So at the bottom part of the task 2, then they will be able to have specific information of the project. Then the SRA is going to be amended with the construction cost, so they can have certification for funding, for they can get into contract with these different contractors. So task 3 is basically the construction part of the process. Again, there's going to be multiple projects per each subrecipient, and it basically is a typical construction development. So the proposer needs to be aware of the compliance that they need to have in terms of Section 3, Davis-Bacon, etc. And they proposers need to be prepared to provide all the monitoring of all of these specific compliance criteria that needs to be checked throughout the development of the project until the project is completed, and the closeout of the project also has to be managed in compliance with all applicable regulations and laws, and as well as CDBG-DR requirements. So in a nutshell, this is a really long process, but this is like a summary of the services that need to be provided, and the management of the different tasks that are going to be that are expected to happen in these 3 tasks. So next slide, please. Shirley. So as Shirley mentioned before, there's a lot of assumptions that need to be put in place. So it is feasible, the process of comparison, all the proposals that are expected. One of the assumptions, one of the most important assumptions, is that every proposal will have like a core team of resources that are going to be involved throughout the development of the subrecipient performance, identifying projects, developing project construction, etc. So Department of Housing have identified certain positions that are key positions that are expected to perform throughout all the term of the contract, and throughout all the participation of different subrecipients throughout all the three programs that are considered in this proposal. So as an assumption, there are some full-time equivalent positions that have been considered that needs to be used for the cost calculation. It is assumed a maximum amount of 195 hours for each of these resources, and what is expected in the proposal to be described in the proposal is the determination of the labor rate. You have to complete a work approach document where you need to express or explain how you came up to rates that are going to be included here for this calculation. It is important that this rate does not include profit or overhead, because that's going to be a criteria that's going to be evaluated separately. Again, this is something that the Department of Housing has established for everyone in terms of to facilitate the comparison between proposals. So basically, this the first section of this form is to compare cost of these key staff. Also, you need to express the percentages that are you considering for profit and overhead separately, and then you need to sum up these costs. This basically column E will tell how much is going to be the maximum cost per each month. At the bottom line, then you need to consider a term of 5 years, which is the maximum amount that HUD allows for a contract for within their terms. So it is required to consider these 6 years, assuming that all 3 programs are going to be managed through those 5 years. Obviously, this does not consider all the subrecipients at the same time, but for comparison purposes, we are going to consider this stuff throughout the whole term of the contract of 5 years. Next slide. So, in terms of the as Shirley explained, we have considered 5 levels of projects, and the levels are established by the size of the project, which the size is in terms of cost. It is assumed that CRC, Community Resilience Centers program, is gonna have the project with a smaller cost. Again, this cost is considering all the investment required for each project, and then the critical resiliency, critical infrastructure resilience program is considered like as the program with the largest projects. So the higher the cost. So in terms of that, you have 5 forms in which you have to provide your unit cost per subtask per each subtask that we just explained in the previous slides, and then there are certain subtasks that are need to be considered in terms of the number of units. The units again. In terms to facilitate the comparison, we understand that the Department of Housing understands that there are going to be certain subtasks that are derived by the number of recipients that they are going to be managing, and there are other subtasks that are going to be their costs are going to be driven by the number of projects. So basically, the forms already have established that again. To facilitate the comparison between the proposals. So tasks from 1.1 to 2.3 are going to be managed by subrecipients. They are already, the forms that you received have already the number of subrecipients that have been previously explained by Engineer Biriel. Each of the programs have different numbers of subrecipients in this initial task. In task 2.4 through 2.7, their costs are driven by the number of projects, because at this stage the subrecipients are already participating on the program, and they are submitting projects to be evaluated or to be developed. So these 4 tasks are going to be driven by the number of projects. After the project is developed and the cost of construction is known, then you have to again deal with the subrecipient amendment. So that's why subtask 2.8 is driven by the number of subrecipients, because you need to repeat that task through the number of subrecipients that are you're gonna have assigned. Construction is driven by the number of projects, and the closure of the project or the grant is gonna be driven by the number of subrecipients. This is pretty much straightforward. The relevant part here is that, again, for comparisons purposes, you have to provide the unit cost determined to perform that subtask, right? Or that, depending on if it is driven by subrecipient, or if it is redriven by project. So we, again, provided a cost form to present how the calculation of each of the unit costs have been determined. And if you can go to the next cost form. So here, basically, the Department of Housing have identified the typical resources that are expected to participate on the development of the subtask per each program, and it is provided the positions, but similar to the key staff, you need to present the cost rate or the cost per hour per each of the resources, and then you need to provide or fill the space provided per each resource in terms of the hours. The field that indicates cost is basically a multiplication of the number of hours per the rate, the cost rates. So it's pretty much straightforward. But again, there are assumptions or methodologies that you probably, with the experience that you have for this type of program, you need to explain in the work approach. It is important for us to understand how is your approach using these resources. An important note is that if you understand that one of these resources is not needed, or for whatever reason you understand that you don't need to use it, you just put a 0 there and show that the calculation for that resource is 0. The same way, if there are some resources here that you understand that you require several of them. So in other words, if you need more than one FTE per each of for any of the positions, then you just have to include the total hours for the position. You already noticed that we didn't include the FTE calculation, so it's a matter of including the number of hours for the position. So so the result for this cost form is gonna be the unit cost for each subtask. Again, this is per each program or project level, whichever way you prefer to see it. And then also it is important to have the total hours for that position for that program. It is important for us also have that information, again, for comparison purposes. So actually, you can go back just a little for a second to the previous one. So that means that column, there. So that means that the column E, you're gonna be filling it up with information that you provide in the cost form for unit cost for subtasks, right? And then you just in the column F, you just do the multiplication for the unit cost per the number of units, depending if it is subrecipient or project. So we can have a total amount of the cost without, again, similar to the previous cost form, without first in field G, without including profit or overhead, and then separately show those numbers for profit and overhead and I cannot see the bottom part, but at the bottom, you need to sum up all the costs for that project. So that this will summarize the cost for managing that specific program. And obviously we are just showing this one as an example, but this is the same for each of the 5 cost form of the program that you need to provide. There's another important thing that we need to explain regarding the environmental services. Go to the next one, please. Here, environmental services. The Department of Housing is requiring from the subrecipients, so the performance of an environmental review. This is compliance with 24 Part 58 of the HOT regulation, right? So it is originally we assume that all subrecipients are going to be performing their own environmental review per each project. But we also recognize that there are going to be some subrecipients that will be unable to perform their own environmental review. So that's why we included requirements from the proposers to be able to perform the environmental review. If this occurs, that this is going to be the Department of Housing is going to be requiring this from selected program managers. So this doesn't mean that the program manager will decide which environmental review they are going to decide. No, PRD, the Department of Housing is going to be requesting from the selected program managers when they have to perform the environmental review. Other than that situation, the program managers are going to be reviewing the environmental reviews that the subrecipients are going to be performing. That means that they need to revise the environmental review, the documentation are valid or are in compliance with requirements. And in the best interest for the Department of Housing, and so everything is in compliance with all requirements, local requirements and federal requirements in terms of environmental review requirements. Another aspect, important aspect, is that we have separated the cost form in the 3 typical services that are going to be or the 3 typical environmental review that are going to be prepared. Keep it, please keep there. So the first one is environmental review for activities that are exempt of the requirement, of the environmental requirement. Then you have other 2 that is, those are going to be categorically excluded, but subject to certain specific requirements of Part 58. And those that are not subject to Part 58, we understand that the 3 types of reports or reviews have certain characteristics that probably will have different costs. So that's why we are requiring cost for each of the 3 for the review. Probably there are going to be some cases in which the projects are going to be more complicated and may require environmental assessment or maybe environmental impact statements, and then that's why the Department of Housing is considering to have an allowance for environmental services for the specific studies or any other specific work that are going to be required for those specific cases that, again, will require a discussion and authorization with the Department of Housing before proceeding to do any of this work. So that's why we are only including or requesting costs in the forms for these 3 typical activities or reviews that need to be prepared. But from two perspectives, from the perspective of reviewing the subrecipient work, or in some cases, probably the less, performing the environmental review. Again, from the numbers that at the very beginning, Engineer Birrier explained, we have an assumption of number of projects. Again, this is part of the documentation that is already distributed. So at the end, this form is will contain from column C through column H, unit cost for the type of work, for the program or project level, for the program type or project level that needs to be presented in two values. Always is going to be presented in how much it's going to be for preparing the environmental review, or how much is going to be for reviewing the documentation from the subrecipient. And the rest is basically mathematics, or summing up the totals. And then again, the unit cost shall not include overhead or profit. That is going to be a separate calculation, again, for comparison purposes. You can go now to the cost form that will present the detail. This is more or less similar to the one that, of the unit cost for the subtasks, but in this case we are identifying certain positions that we understand that may participate. Again, this is for comparison purposes only. The proponent doesn't have to use all of the positions. The important part is that the methodology explained in the work approach needs to be related to the costs that are submitted or shown in their proposal forms when they are, the cost forms that are provided with your proposals. So again, you need to identify the cost per hour. Again, in the work approach, you need to develop the methodology or how you came into these numbers, and then establish how many hours per type of project or per program for each of the positions. For any position that again is required more than 1 FTE, you need to consider the number of hours of the number of FTE that you understand are required. At the bottom row, row C, then you will identify the unit costs that are going to be then transferred to the cost form for the services. So that's why we included a cost form for providing the detail. I think that's it, right? Yeah, that's it for the cost form explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Salim. This RFP also provides for liquidated damages. It's referred to section 3.4 for details regarding penalties and liquidated damages. It's important that proposers must have a minimum of required insurance policies and coverage. And for details regarding insurance requirements, refer to attachment number 4, insurance requirements of the RFP package. So it's related to section 3, proposed plan. Proposers are encouraged to submit with their proposals a proposed section 3 plan in compliance with section 2. Submitted proposed plans will be evaluated, and up to 5 points may be assigned to the proposer based on the proposed plan's completeness. All proposers must verify section 3.10 of the RFP instructions for the requirements to be evaluated in order to obtain the 5 bonus points. In addition, the PRDOH shall provide a preference of 5 points In the evaluation criteria for major participation of Section 3 business concern, refer to Section 7 for details regarding the 5 reference point. At the end of this pre-bid conference, the Assistant Deputy Secretary for Disaster Recovery, Maria del Carmen Figueroa, will be sharing with us a presentation with very important details regarding federal civil rights, compliance, and labor standards. In terms of important dates for this RFP, the submission of questions and requests for clarifications are due for June 19 at 4 p.m. Responses to questions and requests for clarifications for June 30. The proposals due date are set for July 13 at 8 a.m. Please remember those dates in order to comply with the submission of the proposal today. That's very important. Now, William will explain to you the proposal electronic submission process.
Thank you, Laura. Well, all you know, the circumstances and special conditions that we have been through the last 3 months, and that make us on, forward and be more aggressive on adopting policies that allow the procurement process to be basically able to be conducted through an electronic platform, so participants may submit their proposals via our website. So we have been working on adopting those policies and guides, and now the responses to this RFP will only be accepted by electronic means. Proposers are advised that the PRDOH will neither require nor accept physical proposal submissions. If proposals are submitted in both electronic and in paper formats, the PRDOH will only consider the electronic format for evaluation. The proposer will receive access to submit the electronic proposals after registration process is completed through the CDBG-DR website. Proposers will be requested to provide and validate an email address. If the validation message doesn't appear in your inbox, check your junk or spam folder. Proposal must be submitted on or before July 15, 2020 at 4 p.m. Access to upload the electronic proposals will commence 3 business days prior to the scheduled due date and time. Prior electronic proposals submission on the CDBG-DR website, proposer must take into consideration the following. Check your internet connection before starting to upload the electronic proposal documents. As the due date time draws near, heavy traffic on the web server may cause delays. Plan ahead and leave ample time to prepare and submit your proposal. Proposers bear the risk of website inaccessibility due to heavy usage in the final hours before the RFP closing time. The proposer must submit the mandatory requirements, qualifications and work approach, and the cost proposal requirements in the identified sections at the website. The documents must be submitted in PDF format. Searchable PDF format is recommended. Multiple PDFs may be merged into one single document. Also, multiple files may be uploaded in a zip file. The maximum upload size for each document or compressed file is 500 megabytes. The proposer is solely responsible for on-time submission of their electronic proposal. The PRDOH will only consider electronic proposals that have been transmitted successfully within the RFP requested format. During document upload process, the proposer will be able to click on the documents and have a preview of the uploaded document. Incomplete electronic proposals with errors or if viruses or corrupted files are found after the upload will not be accepted. During submission period, proposers experiencing any technical difficulties may contact the PRDOH at cdbg-procurement@vivienda.pr.gov. If CDBG-DR website fails during the submission period on or before the scheduled time deadline, the PRDOH will provide instructions via addendum to the proposers. Once the electronic proposal is submitted, the proposal is locked in the system until PRDOH completes its evaluation. Therefore, the proposer must assure that all documentation required by the RFP has been correctly uploaded at the submission due date. The proposer must be aware that modification to the electronic proposals will not be allowed once the submission is completed. Now, I would like Laura to discuss the evaluation criteria. Laura.
Thank you. This RFP includes the following criteria. First of all, we have the mandatory requirements. Mandatory requirements are mentioned in section 6 of the RFP instructions and includes, among others, financial requirements. The first one are audited, review, or compiled financial statements for the most recent 2 years. The financial statements must include a balance sheet, statements of operations, statement of cash flows, and notes to the financial statements. Copy of income tax return for the same 2 years. If proposer has more than 1 year in operation but less than 2, please provide the requested information for the last fiscal or calendar year. Most recent interim year-to-date financial statements for a period ending not later than 60 days before the proposal submission date. Line of credit or cash availability, the amount required, $542,000 for this RFP. It is important that, to mention that the information submitted will permit a pass or fail rating following a scoring process by the PRDOH. In terms of the qualifications, these qualification requirements will have a total maximum score of 60 points. Qualification requirements includes, among others, compatible projects. The proposer must provide a list of 3 contracts within the past 10 years in which the proposer's program manager or the deputy program manager and or first-year subcontractor has provided similar services to the scope herein required. Contracts submitted must rate similar program management services for programs that combined had a minimum allocation of $50 million and they managed a combined minimum quantity of 10 subrecipients. The proposer must describe the program, funding source, subrecipient eligibility requirements, type of projects allowed under the program, and the services performed under the contract. For the staff, as related to the engagement, the proposer must provide the name of the resource to be assigned, their education, years of experience, licenses, certifications, and resumes for professional information, specifying year of graduation, start and end dates for each job position and projects. The proposer must fill the key team members' information as part of Exhibit C. Please refer to attachment number 1 for detailed requirements and roles of each staff member. Another qualification requirement are the references. Each proposer shall provide at least 3 past or current client reference for IT consulting services. The PRDOH will send via email of each reference provided a performance rating questionnaire to the contact person identified by the proposer in Exhibit L. The PRDOH will require a response to the PRQ within 5 business days from the date sent. The PRDOH will not be responsible of references that are not received during the established period. Now, William, I will ask you to explain a little bit of the work approach requirement.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, the work approach is an important part of your proposal, and each proposal should draft and submit a work approach document as part of the proposal, including the proposer's understanding of the overall implementation of the CDBG-DR infrastructure programs, a proposer's overall plan for the management of the different subtasks and deliverables listed in attachment 1, the scope of services. Proposers overall plan to monitor and report subrecipients' construction projects activities related to compliance with Davis-Bacon Act and other applicable federal and local regulations. And proposers' strategy to overcome communication barriers, oral or written, with local subrecipients and or citizens, given the limitation that may exist due to language. Let's talk about the proposal evaluation, which will be scored using the best value methodology in accordance with our procurement manual. Proposals will be evaluated under technical capabilities, namely the proposer's qualifications and work approach, and a score for each criterion will be assigned based on the maximum allowable points stated in the RFP. To be considered a qualified proposer, proposers need to achieve a technical score rating greater than or equal to 70 points. There is another requirement, very important, to participate in this federal funded program, which is the SAM registration. The proposers and first-tier subcontractor must be registered in the System for Award Management, the SAM, at the time of the proposal submission or initiate the registration process right after the proposal submission. For some information about the System Award Management, go to the www.sam.gov/SAM/. There is no registration fee to create or renew, update your organization's information on SAM. Awards will only be issued to entities which are cleared and not eligible for award of a contract due to suspension, debarment, or HUD imposed limited denial of participation. And now, I would like to have Maria del Carmen to share with us a presentation regarding Section 3 minority and women business enterprises compliance requirements and other federal civil rights requirements for this CDBG-DR program. Maria.
Good morning, William and everyone. I will stop my video and share my screen. Thank you for the time that procurement has given me. I just wanted to make sure that if si alguien necesita esta presentación en español, se puede utilizar el proceso de preguntas a través de la oficina de procurement para solicitar la presentación en español. This is the CDBG-DR Federal Civil Rights Compliance, Introduction to Federal Civil Rights Compliance and Labor Standards. Today we will discuss the compliance roles and responsibilities, the introduction to compliance areas and tools online, and training and reporting. Civil rights and labor standards compliance includes the following areas: Section 3 training, hiring and contracting opportunities compliance, minority and woman-owned business participations compliance, Davis-Bacon and related acts compliance, and fair housing and equal opportunity compliance. Our team is dedicated to work with your teams to ensure we can all successfully complete compliance requirements for this CDBG-DR funding. Roles and responsibilities for PRDOH include CDBG-DR guidance, tools and templates, sponsored training sessions to cover compliance areas, collect information in reports and compliance documents for contractors, complete reviews of reports and provide feedback, gather data from contractors from quarterly reporting, and report to HUD for civil rights compliance areas for CDBG-DR. All contractors to PRDOH using CDBG-DR funding have certain roles and responsibilities regarding federal compliance. Those include assigning staff who will attend to the day-to-day activities for civil rights compliance, attending trainings and workshops, executing activities and documentation needed, completing quarterly reporting, using tools and templates provided by PRDOH, participating in PRDOH-sponsored technical assistance, and complying with reporting. Let's begin with compliance for Section 3. Today we will briefly discuss some of the basics related to this topic area. Section 3, which is outlined in 24 CFR 135 of the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968, states that CDBG-DR funding is to provide to the greatest extent feasible job training, employment, contracting, and other economic opportunities generated by certain HUD financial assistance shall be directed to low and very low income persons and businesses. Let's discuss what is a Section 3 person or resident. Section 3 resident is a public housing resident and low and very low income person who lives in the metropolitan area or non-metropolitan county where a HUD-assisted project for housing or community development is located. Meet the HUD 2019 income limits up to $28,850, and Section 3 resident must meet the qualification for the position to be filled. Section 3 businesses is one of that met any of these three options listed below. At least 51% or more owned by Section 3 residents, or whose permanent full-time employees include persons at least 30% of whom are currently Section 3 residents or within the 3 years of the date of the first employment with the business concerned were Section 3 residents, or provides evidence of a commitment to subcontract in excess of 25% of the dollar award of all subcontractors awarded to a Section 3 business concern. A Section 3 business concern should have the ability and capacity to perform the scope of work. The requirements of Section 3 apply to HUD-funded programs such as CDBG-DR recipients, grantees that receive an award in excess of $200,000.
In addition, all contractors or recipients receiving funds or contracts in amount greater than $100,000 to complete projects funded with CDBG-DR are also required to comply with Section 3 requirements. This applies to programs or projects using at least $1 of CDBG-DR funding that met the thresholds above and involve installation of materials. We refer to these as covered projects and covered contracts. 30%, this is our Section 3 minimum numerical goals. 30% of the aggregate number of new hires annually are Section 3 residents. A Section 3 resident, remember, must meet the qualifications for this position to be filled. 10% of the total dollar amount of all Section 3 covered contracts for building trades, work for maintenance, repair, modernization, or development of public housing, or for building trades for work arising in connection with housing rehabilitation, housing construction, and other public construction. A Section 3 business concern should have the ability and capacity to perform this scope of work. And for non-construction contracts, 3% of the total amount of all other Section 3 non-construction covered contracts. All recipients must read and understand PRDOH Section 3 policy available in English and Spanish. Please use the links in the slide to access the policy documents on the PRDOH website and click on the download button to access the file. PRDOH has created various forms for maintaining compliance with Section 3, such as Section 3 contractor plan and a Section 3 recipient plan. This document template allows contractors or recipients to identify how they plan on being in compliance with Section 3 hiring, training, and contracting goals. Section 3 self-certification form. These documents templates help individuals and businesses identify if they meet the requirements to be considered as Section 3 individuals or businesses. Documentation of effort form. These document templates allow contractor or recipients to identify how they are performing efforts to be in compliance with Section 3 efforts. And the quarterly reporting template, this reporting form allows contractors and recipients to report on data that PRDOH will be required to report annually. All contractors using CDBG-DR funding on covered contracts must submit to PRDOH a Section 3 plan. A Section 3 plan contains 8 main areas of information. Those are basic information, name, address, contact information, website, identification of a Section 3 coordinator, identification of the project area, specific information about the contractor's current workforce and any foreseeable hiring needs, a firm commitment to document and report efforts that will be made to notify Section 3 business concern of contracting opportunities generated by HUD, financial assistance for housing and community development programs to the greatest extent feasible. These resources and more can be found in English and Spanish publicly for contractors to use. HUD offers a few resources on their site for identifying a business qualifies as Section 3. To register with HUD as a Section 3 businesses and search for a business using their online tool, the link on the page will take you to the HUD site where you can use the online tool by clicking on the metropolitan area and choosing Puerto Rico, choosing the business capabilities options, and using the additional search options as needed. Once you have completed those sections, you can click on the search for businesses and the site will provide a list. Please remember to read the HUD disclaimer on the site and to complete your own due diligence when using the list. Compliance with minority and women enterprise contracting participation is also important. Today, we will briefly discuss some of the basics related to this topic area. 2 CFR 200-321 and Executive Orders 11-625, 12-138, and 12-432 establish the use of MWBE firms. As a recipient of HUD financial assistance, the uniform administrative requirements at 2 CFR 200-321 require PRDOH to ensure that when possible, contracts and other economic opportunities funded in whole or in part with federal housing and community development assistance are directed to minority business enterprise and woman business enterprise. Contractors will take all necessary affirmative steps to assure that minority firms and women business enterprise are reached out to and used when possible. Efforts should be documented and utilization plans should be provided to PRDOH. Minority business, MBE is defined as a business which at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled on a daily basis by one or more, in combination can be American citizens of the following ethnic minority or gender, and or military veteran classifications: African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Native American, Hasidic Jew, person with disabilities, other individuals who can prove social and economic disadvantage. Woman business enterprise. A woman business is a business concern that is at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women. Must be US citizen or legal resident aliens whose business formation and principal place of business are in the US or its territories, and whose management and daily operation is controlled by women. MWBE requirements apply to all procurement contracts of 10,000 or more. MWBE applies to professional services and construction work. The participation requirement is based on the total amount of each individual prime contract awarded to PRDOH. The MWBE participation requirement is 20%, 30% for MBE, and 10% for WBE. These requirements may be met either through the initial contract award, if the prime is MWBE, or the requirement may be met through subcontracts specified within the prime bidder's proposal or bid. Certified minority or woman-owned businesses could be those who have failed applications and been approved with an agency such as SBA, a Small Business Association in Puerto Rico, DOT, Department of Transportation of Puerto Rico, and MBDA, Minority Business Development Agency. Businesses who have completed this process can show evidence demonstrating that the entity is owned and or controlled by one or more individuals claiming disadvantaged status of such individuals. All contractors must read and understand PRDOH MWBE policy available in English and Spanish. Please use the links in the site to access the policy documents on the PRDOH website and click on the download button to access the file. PRDOH has created various forms for maintaining compliance with MWBE, such as MWBE Utilization Plan. These document templates allow contractors or recipients to identify how they plan on being in compliance with MWBE contracting goals. MWBE waiver form. These document templates help recipients and or contractors identify if they met the requirements to waive their goal for participation for MWBE. Documentation of efforts form. This document template allows contractors or recipients to identify how they are performing efforts to be in compliance with Section 3 efforts. Quarterly reporting templates. This reporting form allows contractors and recipients to report on data and that PRDOH will be required to report annually. An MWBE plan identifies where there are contracting opportunities to engage minority or women businesses. The form collects information on those subcontracts and information about those businesses. Recipients and contractors should complete this form to identify where contracting opportunities will exist for MWBE businesses. These resources and more can be found in English and Spanish publicly for contractors to use. These are several resources for locating minority or woman-owned businesses. We have provided you some resources within this slide. Additionally, our office can also assist with providing database for local registered businesses. Another area of compliance is fair housing and equal opportunity. Today we will briefly discuss some of the basics related to this topic area. As a recipient of HUD financial assistance, PRDOH must ensure that all programs affirmatively further access to fair housing and all programs provide equal opportunity for participation and employment. PRDOH CDBG-DR program will take meaningful action to combat discrimination, overcome historic patterns of segregation, promote fair housing choice, and foster inclusive communities. These requirements are coordinated by HUD Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity. The Fair Housing Act is Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as amended in 1988, and includes many executive orders, laws, and statutes. As you can see from the chart, there are many executive orders and laws that impact how fair housing is required. All recipients are responsible for facilitating compliance with fair housing through their contractors, subcontractors, and ensuring all necessary efforts are made. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination because of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, family status, and disability. Limited English proficiency refers to a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English. Due to Puerto Rico high Spanish-speaking population, PRDOH and contractors must seek to ensure that a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English will not place them in a disadvantage in the participation of programs being funded with CDBG-DR funding through PRDOH. We established an island-wide LAP strategy to direct how PRDOH and its sub-recipients contractors will take action to ensure meaningful access. For construction contracts, let's jump into Davis-Bacon and its related acts. For non-construction contracts, we will not be covering Davis-Bacon, but this will be a construction contract. Davis-Bacon applies to construction work. Construction work includes the alteration and/or repair, including painting and decorating of public buildings or public work. The Davis-Bacon Act requires the payment of prevailing wage rates to all laborers and mechanics on federal government construction contracts in excess of $2,000. The table outlines the Davis-Bacon Act and related acts basic descriptions. All laborers and mechanics employed by contractors and subcontractors in the performance of construction work apply to the rehabilitation of residential property only if such property contains at least 8 units. There are two types of wage determination: general wage decisions, which are available at that link that we provided, and project wage decisions, which are created by the awarding entity and submitted to DOL National Office for review and approval. There are 4 types: general wage determination: building, heavy, highway, and residential. Contractors performing construction work will have to submit weekly payroll reviews for PRDOH review and compliance oversight. Let's briefly discuss how PRDOH established reporting requirements and training. We have developed training curriculums which provide a step-by-step approach to learn, understand, and implement requirements for each program area. We will send invitations for training sessions both via Microsoft Teams and eventually in person when permissible and appropriate once contractors are awarded and we are notified. Contractors will be responsible for reporting 4 times a year to ensure they are performing efforts related to Section 3 and MWBE. Our trainings will provide vital information to ensure contractors will be able to comply. Persons with disabilities or accessibility specific needs can use the contact information to access reasonable accommodation if needed to ensure equal opportunity. Thank you for attending today's training and presentation. We hope you found the material helpful. Please remember to direct your question through the established protocols with this procurement. William and Laura and the procurement team, thank you for the opportunity to present the material today. I will stop sharing now the presentation. And
thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Even though some of you have submitted your questions through the Q&A or chat section of this meeting, and some of them have been answered, we recommend you to submit this and any other questions in writing in accordance with the RFP instructions. This meeting is being recorded and will be available not later than tomorrow through our website. And finally, we would like to thank you all for your participation and also to my colleagues for their presentation and explanation in this private meeting. So have everybody a very nice day and be safe. Bye-bye.